Jacob, why do you feel called to unite clean energy marketers?
I really wanted to be part of a group that did exactly that. And when I did my due diligence and went online, looked for the opportunities, there just wasn't anything out there that really aligned with what I was looking for. And so I put the feelers out. I asked my own community, if I put this group together, what would you think? And the amount of responses that were positive were overwhelming. And so I took a leap of faith and I created Ampere Story to provide clean energy marketers with tools, resources, and community at a global scale to help them out.
So it was one of those cases of just what you wanted didn't exist, so you made it.
100%. Yeah.
That's yeah. And I mean, I can attest to the awesomeness of it. I've been to a couple coffee chats and a couple speaker series now, and it's a wonderful group, man. You're really curating some awesomeness there.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah. So would you like to introduce yourself and talk a bit about Amp Your Story?
Absolutely. So I am the founder and CFO of Ampere Story. Again, it's an online global clean energy marketing community. Currently, we have 74 members across 4 continents, and we have a committee as well with 10 individuals and 11, including myself. We really focus on two main verticals. So you think on the left hand, you've got clean energy facets of solar, wind, BESS, which are very common and predominant in the industry, but you also think about like geothermal, nuclear, and other facets. And then on the right hand is all the functions of marketing. And so going back to the committee, one of the reasons I realized I needed one was because I have some strong strengths in marketing, but as you know, none of us can do it all. And so I needed people from public relations and comms, design, content marketing, event activation to help bridge that gap. So when people come to the community, they feel like they have a source of truth that they can rely on. And it's not even that we always have the answer, but we're willing to go that extra step to help people find the sources they're looking for. And that ranges everything from revenue attribution tools, which is a constant struggle in marketing, to how do I elevate my conversations to people who are constant blockers, like the chief financial officer, the chief operating officer. And that's a constant struggle, I think, on the marketing side is to flip the script from a cost center to a must have and a revenue generator. And then clean energy, there's people that come in who have great marketing skills. They might have been on the oil and gas side, and then like, this doesn't really align with what I'm trying to do long term. Or it just might be that they want to get into clean energy as a whole, or they just are a bit newer to the concept. So they might be 3 weeks into their role, 3 months in, and they need something to guide them more than just the marketing tasks they do on a daily basis.
Well, for anyone who's listening, welcome back to This Week in Solar. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Nichols, the research and policy specialist here at Exact Solar in Newtown, Pennsylvania. Our guest today is Jacob Yang. As he mentioned, he's the founder and CEO of Amp Your Story. He's also blowing up on LinkedIn right now, and he's doing a great job of just unifying clean energy marketers, which I think is awesome. As you mentioned in your answer before, none of us can do it all. For example, I am one of the world's most incompetent graphic designers. I'm very, very bad at it. I'm interested, what's the thing that isn't in your marketing skill set?
As many compliments as I've gotten on the logo and the branding of Ampere Story, I will say I had a little support. I reached out to a contractor and I said, "Hey, look, I'm creating something that has to be world class. I'll pay you that top dollar. I just want it to be the best possible experience. So when I go to the experts who do this for a living, they can be like, oh, this is legit. I like this. I resonate with this." And so I think it really comes back to we don't need to be good at everything, but we need a place to have support for the strengths that we don't have. And I think that
100%.
example resonates because everything about the brand I gave a lot of thought to. It was like, what are the colors that so many solar EPCs, installers, and developers, OEMs, what's their branding? It's like orange, it's
That's really
green,
funny
it's
because
yellow.
ours are blue and yellow.
Yeah, and so it's these like recurring themes that you see, and I want it to be relatable. And it was even like the the font for doing Montserrat. It's like I wanted something to feel bold and impressive and really stand against the status quo of, we've never had this. We've always wanted it, and now it's here.
That's so beautiful, man. It's wonderful to hear that you put that level of thought into it and to understand that that's what was going on behind the scenes. Because obviously, I only see the front end, and I didn't know that story till now. I know that you are in the process of becoming a top 1% LinkedIn expert, and you have advised a lot of clean energy companies on how they can do better on LinkedIn. So, what's one glaring thing that you think a lot of clean energy companies miss about LinkedIn as a platform? Where do you think they leave money on the table? Like, what do you walk in day one and say, here's what you can do better normally?
The beautiful thing about LinkedIn is every touch point at a company, every employee in some capacity is most likely using the platform. And so one of the
Right.
first things I talk about is not even the growth hacks, and I get into those too, like how do you save money and drive the 500,000 ad views for under $100 and all those fun things. But it's like, if you're spending every morning on LinkedIn as an executive, what are the functions you do? If you're scrolling and you're clicking on these posts and you're just doing a like that probably has the least amount of weight on the level of engagement you bring to the people in your network. And so one of the things I walked them through is like, okay, it's likes, then comments, then reposts, and then original content. And that's kind of the wheel I use to guide them from least valuable to most valuable. And even small crevice things like the difference between liking a post and finding it insightful, right? You've got a post that's got 10 individuals who have liked it, and you only see blue, and you want to stand out to the crowd, you put the yellow insightful emoji to that as opposed to like, it's those small details that add up an accumulation over 6 months where all of a sudden people are like, okay, they're finally seeing my content instead of just feeling like, I think I'm doing it right, but I'm not really
Mhm.
sure.
That's about how long it took for me when I started writing on the platform. It was about 6 months before
Mhm.
anyone noticed. So I think that is a very important piece to hit on for anyone who does want to create content on LinkedIn. It's a slow grind in the beginning, but it's an exponential growth factor a few months, years in. I think it's beautiful that you hit on that point that everyone in your company is probably already using it as well, because it might be the only platform that's true of. Because everybody puts their resume on LinkedIn at some point. So almost everybody has created an account, and you would really just have to go back through the team and have everybody turn on creator mode rather
Mhm.
than them having to go back and learn how to post on Facebook or create a whole Instagram account. It's already there, and the
Mhm.
work history is already there.
100%. And I think it's just looking at it with a critical eye. Like there's no key piece that I can say was what got me to successful on LinkedIn. It was an accumulation. I audited my entire network. I had, I think, 3,000, 2 or 3,000 followers, not a lot of connections. And I audited them all. And with the exceptions of close colleagues and friends, I knew I wanted that space and capacity to be for clean energy marketers. And I wanted to make sure whether it was one person, 10, 100, or 1,000, that the right people are seeing my content. And so it's the same when you're an executive or you're a marketer, you're a salesperson, and you just get into the industry and you start posting industry content. If you've got two clean energy connections and 498 connections have nothing to do with clean energy, well, you're almost posting into the void there. And it's synonymous when people post on their LinkedIn page and they're like, okay, we'll just post 3 times a week and we're certain that our prospects will see our content. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. If you build it, they don't always come, sadly.
Yeah. Another thing a lot of people don't realize hurts them is unaccepted connection requests. You have got to go clean those out from time to time. Because if they just
Mhm.
sit there, you start looking more and more needy and unpopular to the algorithm. In a recent LinkedIn post, you made the claim that the clean energy industry as a whole has a branding problem. So I would love to hear you expand on that and explain what you think is needed to get us to where we don't have a branding problem.
I quoted Rob Contrell from Atlantic Energy on the Charge podcast. And what he was saying was that he worked in telecommunications. And when he was in telecoms, they were 90% branding and 10% technology. And when he transitioned to energy, he realized it was the opposite, 10% brand and 90% technology. And so I think what you find more particularly with some of those companies that maybe just have a bit more traditional processes on their operations, do their marketing as well, is that there isn't a certain level of sophistication that there might be with companies in Silicon Valley or these like,
Mhm.
savvy B2B tech startups that you can get in any sector, that they have to be so agile, they have to be so quick, they have limited resources. Part of it with the branding is speed, like how quickly can I elevate my branding, but also am I pulling outside resources? So I would love to say that every marketer I've learned from is in clean energy, but the truth is it's very much so the opposite. Like I find a lot of resources and I try and portray that into our community. A great example is there's this book of this individual who understands how to build like an unforgettable logo. He breaks
Mhm.
down the actual process of building a logo. And I read his book and he actually lives 30 minutes from my place. And
Oh,
he's
nice.
incredible. He's an incredible guy and I hope to meet him someday. Um, but I never knew that. I never met anyone in the industry who knew that. And so I think part of this community is like, how do we take the best of the best in the world and incorporate that into our industry so we're better as an entire sector together?
Sure. I think historically, it hasn't been a need as well. I mean, energy is undergoing a revolution right now, obviously, but the standard for marketing and branding was set by utilities for the longest time. And
Mhm.
they were regional monopolies. You had to have their product. You didn't have any choice if you bought from them or not. So they had no need for branding. But
Mhm.
now, energy is in an arms race. And there are people making choices between forms of energy. So branding and storytelling matter a lot more. When you imagine Amp Your Story, let's say 5, 10 years from now, what's your dream scenario?
I'm going to preface with I don't like to overpromise, underdeliver as a person, but I would love to reach every clean energy marketer in the world. And I will say there's a lot of them. Like everyone thinks we're not that big. I am telling you, the list that I keep working through keeps growing that I can't keep up with the same pace.
Mm,
I would love to have an event for clean energy marketers in every continent every year. That would be my dream. Meet people from all over the world and do what
nice.
I'm doing just on,
Yeah.
an in-person capacity.
That's a beautiful vision. I'm really excited for the African one. That's the only continent I haven't been on yet. I mean, other than Antarctica. And so I would love to go. To bring it home, Jacob, I ask everyone who comes onto the show the same closing question. And it has to do with the fact that a few months ago, I guess during the summer, I spoke at my grandma's 80th birthday party, which was a huge honor for me.
Mhm.
And in the course of writing that speech and then writing a post about it afterwards, I realized that if she's 80 years old, she was born into a world where what we now think of as clean energy didn't exist.
Mhm.
Like she was born, I think, 10 years after the Rural Electrification Act. So that means, well, 12 years. So her region in Missouri, where she was born, had just gotten electricity for the first time ever. The only way we knew how to generate electricity was to go find things, dig them up, burn them, and send the electricity out.
Mhm.
Solar PV wasn't even invented till 1954. And then, the technology wasn't iterated on for a while. I mean, when Jimmy Carter put solar panels on the White House in 1979, that was solar thermal. And then you have the turn of the millennium, and the price of solar and batteries just falls and falls and falls until now it's the cheapest form of energy. All of that happened within her 80-year lifetime. So if you're just going to moonshot and make a wild prediction, and don't worry, no one can hold us to it, we'll both be dead. We're talking about 80 years from now. What do you
Yeah.
think clean energy looks like in 80 years?
A functional cohabitat with the environment. I think
Okay.
one of my biggest fears is that we lean heavily on the technology, and there's great companies that pull in the environment aspect as well. But I think that's not always the case with a rapidly deploying technology where there's a lot of opportunity in business.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to acknowledge best solar wind, but also continue to advocate for the blue economy, blue tech, offshore wind. Ideally, I would hope that the wildlife and the level of species has increased as opposed to the opposite.
I would too. I mean, that's one of my biggest issues with solar technology is that utility scale installations do take up a large amount of space. There's really no way around that right now. And
Mhm.
if I had my way, we would cover every parking lot and every warehouse we've ever built with solar panels before we ever put it on natural space. But, I'm not completely in charge.
Yeah, no worries. And I also advocate for people who are leaning into photovoltaics. I think of D3 Energy. I think they're on the forefront of that in the US. And also people who are looking at brownfield redevelopment, taking
Mhm.
you know, a site that would essentially be useless, doesn't bring any value to wildlife or humans, and turning that into what they call bright fields. So that resonated with me quite a bit. It's like, okay, if this
Yeah,
is useless anyway, let's turn it into something valuable.
I fully agree. So, Jacob, where can you be found if you do indeed want to be found? How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can find me on my LinkedIn. It's probably the best way. I do a weekly job roundup for clean energy marketing roles on Mondays normally, and Jacob Juan Carlos Yang. So if we haven't met, feel free to say hi.
Thanks so much for coming on today, Jacob.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And for everyone listening, that's been This Week in Solar, and we will talk to you next week.